A 911 call comes through from a farmhouse in Beach City, Ohio. The line is open, but silent. Then it disconnects.
Upon arrival at the residence, the deputies noticed that the front door was open. They gave verbal commands. There was no response. And at that time, there was a gunshot that went off. After the gunshot went off, they tactically approached the house when some backup arrived and discovered
March 2008. ABC's Wife Swap is in its 4th season. The premise is straightforward. Swap mothers between 2 dramatically different families for 2 weeks. Week 1, the visiting mother follows the host family's rules. Week 2, she imposes her own. Then everyone reunites to discuss what they've learned. Producers are always searching for families that create maximum contrast, maximum tension. They find exactly what they're looking for in rural Stark County, Ohio. The Stockdales seem pulled from another century. Tim, 48, works as an engineer but moved his family from the city to a secluded farm. Kathy, 44, left her nursing career to homeschool their 4 sons full-time. But what makes them television gold is their bluegrass band.
Values the Stockdale family band.
It's a hard life, but it's a good life. That's the country life. Been good to me.
The Stockdale family band has genuine talent. Calvin is 19, Charles is 16, Jacob is 15, James is 11. They're regional competition winners. They've performed at the Grand Ole Opry. They've produced 4 albums of traditional bluegrass blended with gospel and comedy. For producers seeking a faith-based musical family, the Stockdales are ideal. Every wife swap family provides a manual of household rules. Kathy's is extensive. No television, no video games, only parent-approved music. Jacob, 16 at the time, tells the cameras, "I have never been on a date. There's better ways to find out about girls than dating." Homeschooling lets Kathy control their character and education away from outside influences. Breakfast happens at the same time every day. If the boys arrive late, they have 2 minutes to get to the table. After that, they're charged 25 cents per minute. Privileges are earned through chores, exchanged for tokens on a wall chart. Everything is measured, controlled, accounted for. Kathy's philosophy, in her own words, "Life is not about entertainment and fun. I do not promote leisure time." A lot of emphasis in the teen world is placed on hanging out with friends. We do not hang out. I insist the boys have focus and purpose, so they do not become corrupted by meaningless relationships. She's stricter than her own parents were, she admits. But times have changed. The outside world is dangerous. She's protecting them.
Stockdale family.
How do you do? We're here to sing and play for you.
When the whistle blows, I gotta go. Well, mama, oh man, you must have a great train.
The Stockdales swap with the Tonkovich family from Illinois. They're opposite in every way. Modern technology, permissive parenting, freedom. When Lori Tonkovich arrives at the farm, she sees talented, polite boys who seem happy making music together. Then comes week 2, when she implements her rules. Television is allowed. Video games are permitted. The boys can experience life outside their routine. Most teenagers would celebrate. Instead, Jacob runs outside, crying. When Laurie follows him and asks what's wrong, His answer stays with her for years. His parents would tell him he'd burn in hell. The cameras capture his breakdown. At the time, it seems like a teenager struggling with sudden change. Later, it will look like something else. After the episode airs, life returns to normal for the Stockdales. Performances continue. Competitions are won. Kathy updates their YouTube channel with videos of the boys playing music, practicing, working the farm. To anyone watching, they seem like a family whose brief fame passed without consequence. The cameras leave. The Stockdales go back to making music together, living by their values, keeping the world at a distance. 9 years pass. By the spring of 2017, the Stockdale family had changed in ways both obvious and hidden. Calvin, now in his late 20s, had left the farm entirely. He was working as a music instructor at Hillsdale College in Michigan, building a life of his own. Charles had moved even further, studying medicine in Philadelphia. Both of the oldest sons had officially left the family band, though they still came home to visit and play music when they could. These departures were significant. The 2 oldest boys had chosen conventional careers, pursued education in the outside world, built lives beyond the boundaries their mother had set. Whether this represented quiet rebellion or simply natural maturation, no one can say for certain. 21-year-old James had found a middle path. He was attending college for business while still living at home on the farm. He talked about eventually managing the family band professionally, becoming a bridge between the world his older brothers had entered and the world his parents had created. Jacob, now 25, had stayed closest to home. He still performed with his father Tim and his younger brother James. He still lived on the farm. Of all 4 sons, he'd remained most connected to the life his mother had designed. The band that remained, Tim, Jacob, James, and their friend Joe Steiner, was still finding success. Their schedule was completely booked throughout the summer. They had performances lined up at festivals and gatherings across Ohio and beyond. On March 23rd, Kathy uploaded what would be her final video to the family's YouTube channel. It showed James outside in the snow, joking around, full of energy. He looked directly at the camera and invited viewers to the 9th annual Stockdale Family Band Bluegrass and Gospel Show on April Fool's Day.
I'd like to invite you to the 9th annual Stockdale Family Band Bluegrass and Gospel Show on April Fool's Day. You won't have to be the fool, though. We got that covered for you.
In early June, the band performed at a musical gathering with extended family and friends. One person who was there later remembered that Jacob had left the event early. He'd told people he wasn't feeling well. No one thought much of it at the time. Mid-month, they played another show at a venue called Wildcat Ranch. Everything seemed normal. The music sounded good. The family dynamic appeared stable. No arguments were reported. No tensions visible. June 15th began like countless other days on the Stockdale farm. Tim left for work at 5:30 in the morning, same as always. Kathy was home with Jacob and James. The house followed its routines, kept its schedules, maintained its carefully constructed order. Then, sometime between 1 and 3 in the afternoon, they heard it. Gunfire. 10 shots, maybe 12. Rapid. Close together. In a farming community, gunshots aren't always cause for alarm. People hunt. They practice target shooting. Firearms are tools, part of daily life. But something about these shots felt different. They were too many, too fast, too close together. Still, no one called the police immediately. At 4:36 that afternoon, a call came through from the Stockdale residence. It was from the landline, not a cell phone. When the dispatcher answered, the line was open but completely silent. No voice, no background noise, just emptiness. Then the call disconnected. We still don't know who made that call. Was it Jacob, injured but conscious, unable to speak. Was it someone else? Was it accidental, a hand brushing the phone in the chaos? What we know is that deputies responded, following standard procedure for hang-up calls, and when they arrived on Dolphin Street Southwest, they found the front door standing open. The deputies approached carefully. Through the open doorway, they could see someone inside. They called out. No response. Then they heard a single gunshot. With backup arriving, they entered the house, prepared for an active shooter situation. What they found was something already finished, something already over. Jacob Stockdale was on the floor, bleeding heavily from a gunshot wound to his head. He was alive, barely, his injuries catastrophic. Near him lay a 20-gauge shotgun, one that belonged to the family. Upstairs, in the bathroom, they found Kathy Stockdale. She'd been shot multiple times. Near a doorway on the main floor, they found 21-year-old James. He'd been shot as well. Both Kathy and James were already gone. The physical evidence told a clear story, even if nothing else made sense. Jacob had taken his family's shotgun and killed his mother and younger brother. Then he'd turned the weapon on himself. That final shot the deputies heard when they arrived was Jacob's suicide attempt. Somehow, impossibly, he'd survived.
Yesterday afternoon at about 4:36 p.m., our office received a 911 call from the residents. It was a landline call, not a cell phone call. It was a hang-up call. At that time, after we received the hang-up call, which we do in a number of cases on a daily basis, we responded deputies to the residents. Upon arrival at the residence, the deputies noticed that the front door was open. They gave verbal commands. There was no response. And at that time, there was a gunshot that went off. After the gunshot went off, they tactically approached the house when some backup arrived and discovered that the suspect, Jacob Stockdale, had attempted suicide and shot himself when they arrived. They also discovered two victims in the home, 54-year-old Catherine Barbara Stockdale and 21-year-old James William Stockdale. Both were deceased as a result of a gunshot wound. Deputies continue to investigate the case along with the Stark County Coroner's Office. Once we have more information available on the case, we will provide it to you. Currently, the suspect, Jacob Stockdale, is in Cleveland Metro in critical care.
Any run-ins with Jacob prior to this incident? Maybe
No, ma'am.
Not related to the house?
None at all.
You haven't been there, no run-ins, anything? It seems like a really nice, wholesome family. What are you looking at as far as any motive yet at this point?
You know, it's hard to, kind of surmise what the motive may have been. There's some speculation. Don't really want to get into that part of it, but we'll continue to investigate this case and try to determine if there's a motive. Just do not know.
Father indicate any issues that have been leading up to this?
None at all.
Mental health issues?
Never mentioned anything of that nature.
Had you guys been aware of this family? I know we're hearing a lot that they were performers, they would travel around a lot. Were they?
We're learning that as well.
Okay.
We were not aware of that when we responded. As was asked, we had never had a reason to be called to that residence in the past. So,
Tim Stockdale was at work when it happened. Calvin and Charles were living their separate lives, states away. None of them had any warning. The phone call telling them what had occurred came completely without context, without precedent, without any way to make sense of it. Tim rushed to the scene, but there was nothing to be done. His wife was gone. His youngest son was gone. His son Jacob was being airlifted to Metro Health Medical Center in Cleveland, clinging to life with injuries that should have killed him. Within days, Calvin released a statement on behalf of the family. James, our youngest brother, has always been a catalyst of family fun, he wrote. He leaves behind many friends and a family that loved him dearly. My brother Jacob is still in critical condition, and we are praying for his physical recovery as our family makes funeral plans and begins the healing process. Then he added something that would define how the family responded to everything that followed. As a family, we love him and forgive him. Tim, in his own statement, spoke about Kathy. She has been my beloved wife of 32 years and a wonderful mother to our 4 sons. She loved nothing more than being a mother and grandmother. She had a strong sense of learning and was passionate about her Christian faith, natural health, and organic farming. What none of them addressed, what none of them could explain, was why. Jacob remained in the hospital for over a year. The gunshot had destroyed much of his face and caused severe traumatic brain injury. He underwent surgery after surgery, reconstructive procedures to rebuild his shattered skull, extensive treatment to address the damage to his brain. He lost all vision in his left eye permanently. 7 metal fragments remain lodged in his head to this day, too dangerous to remove. The neurological damage was profound and, in many ways, irreversible. The question everyone faced, doctors, investigators, prosecutors, his own family, was whether Jacob would even survive long enough to face justice for what he'd done. In September of 2018, more than 15 months after the murders, Jacob was finally stable enough to be charged. 2 counts of murder. His defense attorney immediately entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Given the brain damage, given the suicide attempt, given the complete absence of any apparent motive, an insanity defense seemed like the only possible path forward.
Previous report issued by Psychodiagnostic, I am also going to be filing the not guilty by reason of insanity plea and ask the court to order the appropriate evaluations for that plea also.
But Jacob's case turned into a legal labyrinth that dragged on for nearly 3 more years. He was evaluated and found not mentally competent to stand trial. He was transferred to Heartland Behavioral Healthcare, a secure state psychiatric facility where he was supposed to receive treatment until he could meaningfully participate in his own defense. The evaluations produced contradictory results. The brain damage made consistent assessment nearly impossible. Some days Jacob seemed aware and present. Other days he was completely unresponsive. He attempted to escape from the facility twice. Once by hiding in the library book stacks, once by trying to blend in with visitors leaving the building. During court hearings, Jacob maintained absolute silence. Even when judges spoke directly to him, asking simple yes or no questions, he wouldn't respond.
Mr. Stockdale, are you able to hear me? First of all, officer, can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stockdale, I am...
In transcript after transcript, you can see judges trying to engage him, explaining that his attorneys needed his cooperation, that the legal system required his participation. Jacob sat mute. Then the COVID pandemic hit, adding another layer of delay. His defense attorneys couldn't meet with him in person. Court proceedings moved to video conferences. Trying to conduct a double murder case over Zoom, with a defendant who wouldn't speak even under normal circumstances, pushed the boundaries of what the justice system could handle. Finally, in early 2021, a psychiatrist named Dr. Arian Archangel Woods conducted an in-person evaluation. Her conclusion changed everything. Jacob was not suffering from severe mental illness at the time of the murders. He was, in the eyes of the law, sane when he pulled that trigger. Whatever had driven him to kill his mother and brother, it wasn't psychosis, it wasn't delusion. The insanity defense collapsed. Jacob's attorneys were out of options.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In this particular case, there's been a report that has been filed in this case, and just to walk through it by Dr. Arcangela Woods, it's her opinion based on a reasonable psychological certainty that you are not suffering from a severe mental defect at this time of the charge. And she lists her reasons. She indicates it's her opinion beyond a reasonable psychological certainty that Mr. Stockdale was not suffering from a severe mental disease at the time charged. She's indicating that Mr. Stockdale, in her opinion, based on a reasonable psychological certainty.
On April 27th, 2021, 1 week before his trial was scheduled to begin, 27-year-old Jacob Stockdale stood before Judge Frank Forcione and entered a plea of guilty to 2 counts of murder. At the sentencing hearing, the Stockdale family declined to speak in person. Instead, they submitted a written statement. Our family grieves the loss of Catherine Barbara Stockdale and James William Stockdale, it read. Kathy was a loving mother, grandmother, daughter, sister, aunt, mentor, and friend to many. James was a loving son, brother, nephew, uncle, cousin, and friend to many. Then came the part that captured the impossible position they were in. While Jacob has no recollection of the events of that day, he trusts the legal system to do the right thing. It's beyond our understanding why this act was committed. They addressed Jacob directly. We love you and forgive you for the role that you had in their deaths. To the degree that we are capable of knowing the hearts of Mom and James, we are convinced that they also forgive you for taking their lives. They asked the judge for mercy. They wanted the lightest sentence possible. Judge Forcione had a different responsibility. He sentenced Jacob to 15 years to life for each murder, to be served consecutively, 30 years to life in total. Jacob Stockdale will be approximately 55 years old before he's even eligible to be considered for parole. When Lori Tonkovich hears about the murders, her reaction is immediate. Her son calls to tell her something terrible has happened to the Stockdale family, that someone's been shot, but he doesn't know who. I knew immediately, she says later. In your heart, you knew it was Jacob.
You first heard about what happened to the Stockdale family. What was your reaction?
I actually, when my son called me to tell me what had happened, he didn't know who the shooter was. I knew immediately.
You knew in your heart that it was Jacob.
And I was going to let them have fun, have a television and video games and, experience life a little bit. He ran outside crying. And when I went out after him, I asked him what was wrong. And he said that his mom and dad, tell him that basically he would burn in hell. He lived in a very controlled environment where his mom and dad taught him or told him what to do. Really wasn't allowed to do anything.
Why such certainty from 2 weeks spent with them 13 years ago? He lived in complete control. His parents told him what to do every moment. He really wasn't allowed anything except what they wanted. Work, work, work. Homeschooled away from society. Very religious, very talented. But God gives free will. They didn't have that. No choices. I think it caught up to them. She acknowledges their talent, their faith. But she saw the control. She saw what happened when it was briefly challenged. Jacob running outside, terrified of hell for watching television. But is that a sufficient explanation? Can strict parenting truly account for matricide and fratricide? The truth is, we don't know why Jacob did this. He claims no memory. There's no note, no confession, no clear trigger. Sheriff's records show no prior domestic calls to the residents. Neighbors describe the family as nice, quiet, talented. At the musical gathering in early June, witnesses report nothing unusual except Jacob leaving early because he felt ill. What happened between 1 and 3 p.m. on June 15, 2017? What words were spoken? What conflict emerged? What broke? Possibilities exist, though none are confirmed. Perhaps the pressure of being the only son who hadn't left, who hadn't built a separate life, became unbearable. Perhaps there was a specific confrontation that day about his future, his choices, his autonomy. Perhaps mental illness had been developing silently, undetected, until it erupted in violence. Perhaps the brain injury erased memories that could have provided answers, or perhaps claiming amnesia is itself a form of self-protection. The family's own statement addresses this directly. It's beyond our understanding. If his father and brothers don't know, who can? The case forces uncomfortable questions about family, faith, and freedom. Research shows that extreme control and isolation can cause psychological effects in children. Difficulty with decision-making, anxiety when faced with choices, anger at lost opportunities, a fundamental sense of powerlessness that rarely but sometimes erupts in violence. But most people raised in controlling environments don't become violent. Most find ways to adapt, to leave, to heal. Calvin and Charles apparently did. Kathy and James Stockdale are gone. Jacob will spend the next 3 decades, possibly the rest of his life, in prison. Tim and his 2 remaining sons are left trying to make sense of something that may be forever senseless. And somewhere in what remains of this family's story is a truth that may always be just beyond our understanding.